Thanks for coming out. Wanted to give you a little bit of information for those of you that were here yesterday. We did make some changes to the app online. You do not need to, on Sked, you do not need to log in to be able to see the whole schedule. So, thanks for bearing with us while we worked all that out. So I wanted to mention a few things. Yesterday I talked about that we ran, for this conference, we ran 2,000 feet of fiber in this hotel. Some of the guys that did that are here in the room, and myself. The other thing is the hotel didn't have enough bandwidth, internet coming in, so we actually worked with Gigabit X, which is over in the corner in the sponsor area, to run a microwave connection from the building across the street. So we could have a 700 meg connection that then goes down into the room where we have a stack of switches and firewalls, and then we're tied into the infrastructure that we ran ourselves, which was 2,000 feet of fiber and about 3,000 feet of copper. So we built out a network over a couple weekends. Thank you. Yeah, and that was my team that helped put that together. Appreciate that. Thank you, guys. So I actually have a few things, but I don't want to take any of Chris Nickerson's time here. He doesn't care. So a couple things. We're going to have some awards on Sunday. There's a couple CTFs going on upstairs. Let me see where I have the list. We have the OpenSOC Blue Team CTF, we have the Command and Control CTF, and we have the ICS SCADA Village CTF, and we have a main CTF. The winners of those events will get a Uber badge that gives them access to this event next year for free. We also have some bio RFID injection. You can get your hand implanted with an RFID tag up in the Hackers Haven with Cooper. He's up there doing that. I wanted to thank our sponsors. Our title sponsor is CPS Energy, if you didn't notice by their name being like all over the place. But we really appreciate their title support. Without them, this event would not be possible. I also want to thank Rackspace. Rackspace does managed services. A lot of people don't know that. They're also looking to hire people. They apparently have a lot of openings, so you might want to visit them if you're looking to get into that. And WWT, Worldwide Technologies, is a Cisco partner, that one of the largest ones, and they're responsible for the breakfast that you guys, the coffee and breakfast that you guys were able to enjoy this morning. I also want to thank InfoSite, one of our top tier supporters, and Cisco as well. CDW is one of our sponsors. Appreciate their involvement in the event, as well as Security Innovations, Safe Breach, Trend Micro, Darkite, Devo, and NetSync. All of them are great sponsors, and please visit them when you get a chance. So we actually are going to have a lunch break today. If you notice the schedule, there's some time for you to go enjoy lunch. We just had such a great lineup yesterday, and not enough time. So I know a lot of you got to enjoy Rob Joyce from the NSA's talk. I think it was very informative. And then a lot of you stayed afterwards for Jeff Moss's talk, which was really amazing as well. He's something else. He didn't use a projector, slide, nothing. He just went off the cuff. So it was really good to watch. And those talks will be available on video. We're recording them. So after we've cleaned all the stuff up, we'll post them online. You guys will be able to see them online if you didn't make it yesterday.
Some of them are at the same time, so.
Right. Yeah. So we're recording 3 tracks plus the keynote. So there'll be a couple of them, a couple that we're not covering just because it's such a new event and we only have so many resources. So one thing I wanted to cover real quick before I introduce Chris is, so all of us have grandparents or parents or relatives that are elderly, and I just want to mention that those people need your help in securing their environment. They're going to become your problem later on if they send you something and you're not expecting it and you're random, you just accidentally click on it, you become the next victim from something that one of your relatives or your parents has. So I would just suggest everybody in here spend a little bit of time with their parents or grandparents and help them be more wary of the internet, you know, less trustful of emails that they're getting, start scrutinizing things, question everything. And I think just doing that, you're going to help protect yourself, because obviously they're going to communicate with you at some point, and you never know what you're going to get. So there's several programs out there to help with doing that. I just wanted to point that out. So we, all of us in this room can make a difference if we help our parents and grandparents and relatives. If you don't have any, then help your neighbor. Lastly, wanted to mention that the hotel does have lunch. It's $13.95 downstairs, but there's also a ton of restaurants around here. That's the reason that we're doing it on the Riverwalk, is so that you guys, there's a lot of people in town that live here that never make it down to the Riverwalk. I'm one of those people, so.
Twice.
Yeah, so having it down here was you know, kind of the point of having this event, was to have it on the Riverwalk so people in town or out of town could come and enjoy the Riverwalk. So spend some time down there if you can. And lastly, I wanted to thank Chris Nickerson for coming out and doing our keynote speak this morning.
Thank you.
Thanks. So without further ado, Chris Nickerson.
Nope, it didn't die. It's undead. Ha! Yes. Good morning.
Good morning.
For those of you who haven't slept, good evening still. I'm not going to talk about anything special, so don't expect a whole lot. I figure it's the morning. It's hard to digest certain things. I think when some people like belabor on about like technical things in the morning, I end up checking out, even if I really want to hear what they're talking about, because my brain is somewhere between the like trying to wake up and coffee and then like thinking about the stuff that I failed to do last night. So I'm going to give you a little bit of my morning brain, of a little bit on kind of what I've been able to observe in the industry. And also some of my kind of gripes, as well as some of the things that I really wish that we could do that I don't really think can be done through a technical nature. I don't think it can be done just because you write an RFC for it. I think it's something that we have to choose to do. So that's it. And if you don't like it, I don't really care.
Morning.
Yeah, good morning. What's up, man? So I want to try and stop dumpster fire as a service because I feel like there's a lot of that going on. There's a lot of it that gets promoted through the industry, whether it's personally or technically. Like there's a ton of dumpster fire that happens, and like I think there's some ways to solve it. So first, I have to thank, I won't say the C word so that no one has to drink, but Texas Summit. Fred, I thought you were going to come in. Okay. But yeah, it's things like this that really get us to a point where we can share information. And I think that that is really the genesis of where this whole industry started. And it's something that I have to applaud because people put all of their time and hard work and weekends into doing stuff like this, whether it's sharing, whether it's listening, just being present alone. That type of participation is what built this industry. So I applaud all of you for being participants and being part of an industry and giving yourselves and your weekends and things like that to this profession, because not a lot of other people will really go that far for their jobs. So thank you all. Okay? Seriously. My disclaimer is long. There's lots of them. Now that you have seen it, you are responsible, not me. If you don't like any of those things, that's super cool. You have the opportunity to get up and leave right now. I am an equal opportunity hater. I like and dislike everything equally. I don't really care if one thing is super PC or not, which isn't really good all the time, but at the same time, I have love for everything and everyone. Okay? So that's me when I tried to take over ISC squared, and it totally worked, and then I denied getting on the board. It worked out, but I figured, the Russian propaganda look was the way to go. I've tried a bunch of other things in the industry to participate, whether it's working at Crest, trying to help set standards, or at ISC or ISACA, or being part of a trust board. I did something with this, for any of you that know or don't know. This started because of a house party that I wanted people to pay for the drinks. It's the real reason. And has now grown to being 435 events across like 60 different countries. So,
including San Antonio.
Right. Yeah, I'm all about the community. I think it's great. I think the more that we can give, the more that we'll get. This is my professional background for anyone who wants to say, no, you're full of shit and lying. That's fine, probably am. But this is the whole reason that, reason you should believe me slide. I've worked at all these really big companies, and I've owned my company for the last 10 years doing testing and stuff. I mean, we do stuff like pen testing. I know, it's early, huh? Too fast. This one, code review, anyone? No? Yeah, good. We'll warm this up a little bit. Incident response? It's so bad. It's just disgusting. Risk assessments? Yeah, we do physical security. And like everyone else who thinks that they're a super badass, we were probably the first company to be commercial doing red teaming. Oh yeah. All right, so I need to talk about our shit show. Does anyone know where that is? I feel like every time I meet people from DC and I show that picture somewhere, they're like, I know where that is. Because all of us stand in front of it, and it's just that like moment of reflection where you're like, this is really what it's coming down to, isn't it? All right, so here's some of my stitch and bitch. First, we have a huge problem with taxonomy. Does anyone, just right off the bat before I have to try and convince you, agree with that? All right, yes, there's a couple people. We have a good start, right? Okay, like what's a pen test? Well, it's a whole bunch of things depending on whoever the salesperson is, whatever the skill set is, whatever the client says, whatever random thing that they've read, haven't read, whatever, preconceived notion about XYZ thing that's there. There's all these different things that they get, and we get mad when we see someone else's pen test that sucks, or maybe we don't even know that it sucks, or we don't really have a gauge for it because the taxonomy is all over the place, right? We have, this, oh, I do vulnerability assessments, or I'm a pen tester, or I'm a red teamer, which I'm not even, that's a whole series of talks I could get started on why that's not real. But they have all these different definitions. Now, I've provided a couple definitions as well. I think at the end of the day, what we're really looking to do in take pen testing is we're trying to understand what are the viable means for causing some type of impact. Now, whether that means on the inside, whether it's the outside, whether it's electronically, whether it's somewhere else, we're really trying to be the sparring partner of the environment to say, do your controls even work? I mean, anybody done auditing before? Okay, so in an audit, there's test of design and test of effectiveness, right? So, I mean, testing for us should just be purely test of effectiveness. I mean, we're not trying to make an assumption or make a decision for someone. We're trying to say, did your design work? there's really no emotion inside of that. Now I know it ends up being a really emotional thing sometimes, but really what we're trying to get out of that is a validation of our design in ways that we can improve it. Now what ends up happening is you get somebody who makes a new term up, right? And then the industry eventually catches on to that term. And then people who used to be doing vulnerability assessment now do pen testing. Why? Because the salespeople can make more money. And because they can make more money. Because they're like, well, it's kind of like that, and no one's going to know the difference, so I'll just hit Nessus scan, and instead of giving them a report that says Nessus on it, I will use the logo function and put my logo on it and be like, you got a pen test. That sucks. So we have to kind of figure out some common language to remove some of those things from our industry. One of the other ones that I absolutely hate is the word risk. Quantifying risk is ridiculous for a lot of the way that we do it. Now, there's other professions in the world that really do it well, but us in InfoSec, look at that absolutely ridiculous equation. Means and motive, okay, so you call LulzSec and you're like, hey, why'd y'all hack me? Because whatever, 1-800 call the hacker that got you or something. And then they give you means and motive, which is, a word. So you take, because I hate you and for the lulz, and you multiply that by the opportunity, which is whenever I feel like, and the business impact is all the things, and you put that over your controls and you end up fucked. Like, every single time you get the divide by 0. Like, it's a stupid equation. I'm sorry.
Just a Pentium.
It's really ironic, right? That we're the people trying to quantify risk for someone else. Like, and a lot of times those people don't even know what their own environment is, and they're expecting us to do that for them, right? We have to get people to connect with what the real value is in their environment and tell us, right? We're just there as the metadata to be like, hey, control works or doesn't work. You're the one who tells us whether it could be a major financial impact, it could be something else, right? So we can't get to the point where we're constantly prescribing. And I think a lot of that stuff is solved by us figuring out some better taxonomy. I can say all that stuff, but it doesn't mean shit if you try, right? So I tried. I did a couple different things to try and fix it. I learned that it probably wasn't within one person's context to do. I mean, like the p-test thing, all right, so a bunch of us got really hammered at a hotel one night, and I decided to, I'm not gonna call it SE, but I walked into a conference room and then ordered the service that I had, which, whatever, I'm on tape. Then they brought in the drink service and everything else, and we conducted our meeting as scheduled. And the whole meeting was at ShmooCon with 20, 25 people and this big giant sheet of paper that we taped together. And we drew out, hey, what does a pen test look like? How should you do it? And then all of us went back and started writing, and then it ended up as this guideline. And then magically the guideline got picked up by NIST and PCI. Okay, I felt good about it. Now, how many times have I been with a customer or been with a friend or been with someone that's in the industry buying a pen test, and I hear Rapid7 go oh yeah, Nexpose follows p-tests, and I'm like, fuck, failed. I completely failed at that one, but I tried. I tried giving some talks about it. I don't think that's necessarily helped, but I'm gonna keep trying. I had a shitty TV show that got broken and kicked off the air because of some hilarious other stories that I can share in other places. I tried to start a string of conferences and got trolled by friends. So I had lots of lessons learned. I don't think I have figured out how to solve it yet. So it's my first problem that I give to all of you is how do we fix taxonomy? How do we get to a point of common language where we remove whatever selfless in this that we can, or we have whatever self-assist we can to try and get to a point where we're all saying the same thing. And it's not just to be the like, this better than this, or this cooler than that, or stops more than this, or whatever else. Can we just get to like a basic term book? Because I think that it would help us. I don't know what other ideas there are. Here's some of my ideas. If you have some, tell me, I'll help. Even if I can't help, I'll try and find people to help, because I think it's something that needs to be fixed. I don't think compliancing it is going to be the way, but at the same time, at least that puts the language down on paper. At least there's someone else auditing against that language, so I can't hate it completely. As much as I've given talks my entire life about how compliance is absurd, I still have to kind of respect that it's going to get the language in somebody's ear. The dictionary might work. Any other ideas? It's early, so I can't really ask you to participate. But I think that we need to try and work on that somewhere. So if any of you have any interest in that, I'm here to help. Scalability. I think that we don't scale. And I know that we don't scale because I myself completely don't scale. I don't know if any of you own a business, have owned a business, or been part of that, have family or whatever else. I had no idea how to run a business when I started it. I just did it. And I was like, I'm just going to do the right thing, which is really hard. And then I'm going to try and do the right thing against a bunch of people who want to compete with me, who also have tons of money and I'm poor. Super, super easy. That's the best part of it. And beyond that, when you're trying to scale, you try and do everything on your back because you're trying to make it work, right? Like when I had my first couple employees, every night was if it was a successful day, what am I gonna do about keeping it successful? If it wasn't a successful day, it was like my friends and people that I love and care about, their family isn't gonna eat tomorrow because I suck. And the scalability is super hard there. So I didn't figure out how I could try and scale the thing that we were bringing to the industry for quite a long time. I was trying to put it all on my back. I was trying to just fly all over the world and do all of the things, and ended up not being half as effective as I needed to be because I didn't understand really how to scale. And I think that our industry has a lot of problems of, we sit inside the echo chamber yelling about the user versus enrolling the user to be on our team and fight on the squad, and now we have an army of millions versus an army of tens, right? So I think that's another thing that I want to try and take on, and I would love to hear anyone's thoughts about how do we actually scale the passion that's in this room, the passion that makes you get up in the morning and be in a place and listen to some jackass on stage at 8:30 in the morning talk about all this stuff. How do we bring that passion to the world, not just to a community next to us or even to one other person, but how do we scale that so it's not everyone trying to bring it on their own back, walking around with a couple nails and being the martyr, right? So I think some of those things that I've found that have been a little bit successful, but I don't know how well they'll be received with the rest of the world, like having apprenticeship programs or having mentorship programs. I think that those things are really important. I think that a lot of times that when people are in schools and they're doing stuff in the lab, it feels really, really good to do something in the lab because it's built to work. When you do stuff in the real world, it is built to not work. Like, I'm telling you, like most of the stuff we do is not intended to work. So like we're already going uphill trying to figure out how to do these things in our job. I think the more we get to work community-wise, the more these CTFs happen, the more that people are banging on this stuff or sharing some of their research, I think the more interested others get. And if we can lower the bar to entry and give that welcoming arm to people, I think that we can do something about it. I don't know the answer though. Okay, more questions. Why don't we measure anything? Like as an industry, we measure almost nothing. I mean, the best part, I think, of every single time I see an interface for a security tool, best thing about it is that always, and I'm gonna say always, all the way across the board, always, I will see something that says, stopped X bad thing. How many got through? What do you mean? I don't know. How many got through? Stopped X bad thing. Out of how many? No idea. Well, then how is the graph even relevant? Don't know, but it looks super cool. Okay, I got it. Like, it's a glamour graph, right? But how do we get beyond glamour graph? We have to really measure, and in order to really measure, we have tons of work to do. Right? We're in this game where we try and play the like, oh, okay, well, you're the one who didn't install this patch, or my security program is X amount secure because I'm chasing patch management. Okay, race to zero, good job going to the bottom. You're gonna just continue to chase your tail, and every time Tuesday comes out, you're gonna feel like you're far away, and then every time that it's Monday, you'll feel that you're more secure, and then every Tuesday, it's gonna suck again. That just sounds like a bad life. So I think that we need to start trying to figure out how to measure things better. I have been tackling this particular one the last probably 2 years, and working with, you guys will see talks on like, or have done stuff or worked with like MITRE's attack framework, right? It's good for common taxonomy. It's very good for being able to provide a baseline so that when I say, did you stop T105 or T1105, your tool that's supposed to stop T1105 says I stopped T1105. Like, really, really great. You know, it's right now we're just kind of like have a gun and we're shooting at a berm, and they're like, how many times did you hit the target? And you're like, always. And you're like, how accurate were you? You're like, always. And then people wonder why, like, you know, you didn't stop APT Pro 9000 Bear or whatever random gold elite thing of the day, right? So part of that I'm trying to do, don't know if it's gonna work. One of the things that I have found is that an inventory against attacks tends to work against an inventory against best practice. Now that might be too hardcore for early morning, but when you start to take all of your controls, all of the things that you have, your firewalls, your, you know, all of your patching, your management solutions, your hardening, your exploit prevention, the things that are going to see things on the wire, see it in flight, see it locally, you know, find artifacts of it. When you start to map all of those things out against an attacker's life cycle, you'll start to see the holes. When you map them out against Gartner, you will start to see your money go away. That's it. There is no damn sense in mapping it against someone else's best practice because it literally gives you zero coverage. The only thing that is going to give you coverage is trying to identify where it works in your environment. Otherwise, you're going to end up in that whole life cycle of just buy new shit all the time, which just happens. And then security programs are mad because, like, we need more money, because if we had more money, we would have stopped, you know, fancy chicken. And then you're like, but we didn't. And it's because of you, mister, you didn't give me money. And they're like, come on, I've given you $20 million. What have you done with it? And they're like, all those penders suck. But this new one is the jam, right? That drives me crazy. So if we can start doing some of this stuff to say, why didn't it work? Where didn't it work? How didn't it work? We can use stuff like attack to have a common language around saying, this is what your tool did not do, right? I mean, I'm a huge problem, just in general, thanks, Mom. But yeah, but no, I'm a huge part of the problem in the fact that I have had tons of time in my life doing research, doing demos, showing things, just being a wank against antivirus, right? And I've showed, hey, you can walk by it every single time, all the time, LOL, it does nothing. Okay, that's a terrible way to talk about it because it does do things. What I learned through trying to measure a baseline was that I was finding out that it was not doing the things I expected it to do, and then I could feed back to those AV vendors and feed back to those different solution vendors. Here are the different techniques that you are not catching. And it was amazing that instead of just walking up to them and being like, haha, you suck, I just walked by you again, and giving them just a list of things where they could go look it up, how fast that shit got fixed. Like, they actually cared. I mean, they also want to stay in business, so who knew? But we can do that, right? We can do that. And then once we do that, we can do it for our own environment. We can figure out what we do well in the attack chain, what we do well against attackers with, and what we don't do well. Because measuring our blind spots is going to help us measure then what we can succeed at doing, right? Measuring success sometimes is very hard in a giant enterprise, right? How many times did I succeed in this electronic thing that has 65,535 ways to do it over a million other different transport mechanisms, right? That's super hard. But if we can get to a baseline like this, maybe we can make some measurement. So I'm trying to get to a point where we figure out telemetry. I don't really know how to do it yet. Again, I think that it's something that all of us need to consider of, can you get telemetry out of your own environment? Can you get something better than the box is on, right? And then next step, can you get something better than a designer graph? Then can I get something better? Can I get to a point where I know today works the same as yesterday, or tomorrow works the same as today? And I think that's a hard question. I don't really have a good answer for that. I can tell you that through doing some of the measurement that we have, we've figured out some really bizarre stuff. You know, just running those tests every single day and instrumenting those cases, we've gotten to the point where I could tell you when DAT files in AV was bad. And I was telling, like, that morning, I could be like, hey, I'm doing the follow the sun. I'm transferring over to my other Defender teams. We run 100 test cases through the environment. We automatically inspect the logs to make sure that those things got caught yesterday. And magically, like, 20 of them are gone. And then we have to go, oh, really? So I can't transfer my defense today because my systems aren't working? Is there a log forwarder down? Is there something else down? Oh, no. The Vagrant that we were running it on caught an AV update, and now it's just completely blind to all this stuff. Now, how many people know that? I don't know. I did not know it until the day it happened to me, and I was like, oh, shit, this is probably a big problem. But I don't know how to fix it yet. So I think these are some other things that I ask, right? How can we start to get an idea of fluctuation? How can we understand expansion and contraction in our environment? How can we understand coverage? How can we get to a point of understanding the difference between detection time, remediation time, dwell time, eradication time? All of those things come with a whole ecosystem of testing and performance and telemetry that I don't see any tools doing. But I think it's going to be the foundation of how we get further in the future. So it's another question. Please, if you got the answers, go do it. The world needs it. I'll help any way I can. We have other weird things that I don't understand. I mean, I understand them for myself, right? There's some real strange, like, egos and crazy chest puffing weirdness that happens in our industry that I totally don't understand. Especially from just, you know, a whole bunch of, I mean, I get it, like, oh, I came as a bullied nerd, and now I can bully you back with the computers. I felt that before. But there's all these different faces, I think, that people are required to wear in InfoSec sometimes. Like the, you know, InfoSec jerk on Twitter, or the InfoSec person who does this or does that, versus just the who you are at home. And I think that sometimes that creeps into our office a lot, where it's the, and I get how it happens to us, right? Someone else puts the mask on us sometimes. It's like the asshole security person who tells me no to everything. Like, okay, I get that. If somebody else constantly told me no, which they did, I just learned how to get around it, but not everybody else takes it that way. So I think it's one of those issues that we have to start figuring out is, how do we exist in a world where we're here all on the same team, whether it's the pen tester, red teamer, offensive person, or blue person, or somebody in the middle or management. Like, all three of those people in those teams are totally together in the same goal. Because if they weren't, they would be doing other shit. Like, I can tell you right now, I would not choose a life of flying around and not being super rich if I didn't care about it. I wouldn't choose just hanging out and talking. I would go and I would be mega loaded on the black hat side. I wouldn't give a shit. I would go pave companies. I would sell shit all day long. I mean, as easy as it is to like go scan for SQL injection somewhere and dump credit cards, I'd have a fucking empire. But I don't, because I really truly want to do the job that I'm doing, and I have a feeling that all y'all are here because of, I mean, there's maybe a couple people who are like, I'm black hat as fuck, but that's fine. I just think that some of those masks that we wear end up defining us in some very different ways than we need to be defined. I don't even, that slide's like an eye chart. It's the worst. It is the worst tweet I've ever seen in my whole life, or Facebook post, or wherever it came from. It was like someone who's a pen tester who's like, I need a job now, I'm not joking. I need a real job, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh my God. Like, first off, huh? Yeah, it's just all cap. I won't move. I need RSUs.
4 months ago, right?
Yeah. I wanted to I would have taken the cuffs just to punch that dude in the face. And I would have. I'd have been like, for the community, wham, and I'd have laid them the fuck out. I have a little bit of money to get out of it, but not. I would start a Kickstarter and be like, help me punch this dude, and it would instantly get funded. Right? Right. So I don't know how to fix this problem. I think that just, this Eckhart Tolle quote makes sense to me, because as soon as we recognize it, it's no longer really there. It doesn't necessarily have the power. But I think, again, it's not something that even though it's so ironic, I'm barking at other people. You can't bark at other people. But you can't really tell somebody else to do it. You just have to kind of be aware of it yourself. And if you become that change, then it happens around you, right? Cheers, we did that wrong. I like that he's like still in it. He's like, yeah, and she's like, no, not happy. All right, so how do we fix that one? That one is an even larger problem that I have no idea how to fix, other than, doing more yoga. I think that the more that we're aware of it, the more it'll help. But again, another thing I'd like people to consider of how do we do it? Is it a checks and balances of the people around us? Is it checks and balances on ourselves? Is it both? Do we make an app that says like, you're being an asshole, like, and it just pops up on the screen? And then you could be like, I use blockchain and AI to analyze your language and give it to, IBM's Watson project so it can understand the intent. And then it's like, wah, wah, you suck. And then you're like, I'm gonna buffer over for this bitch. Watch this, let's turn it off. God, I feel like I had a project for like 4 months in a really, really, really big does anybody work in like a really big organization? All right, so like, do you have like RSI guards, like for like ergonomic things? And the thing would just yell at me. It'd be like, you're typing too long. And I'm like, this is my job, literally only thing I do. And it's just like, stand up. And then I'm like sitting at my desk and I'm like doing this in the middle of the office. Sorry, I digress. What have I actually learned from all of this? So I have a lot of questions, but I have learned some things. So I'd like to try and share some of the things that I've learned, which may not work for anybody, but somehow the pan hit me in the face over and over again, and I learned some things. The biggest one is that security is a feeling. It is not a thing that you do or don't do. In the English language, the word security is only a feeling. It always comes back to a feeling, right? Which means that unless all of us are skilled therapists, we are not going to do our job as best as it can be, because we have to manage other people's feelings. We don't just have to manage their firewall. We don't just have to manage, we caught the person, didn't catch the person, whatever else. We actually have to manage the feeling of all of the people we interact and work with in order for them to actually feel secure. Don't know why that came out. Maybe it's because I live in Colorado, but it just happened, right? And the more I started to focus on how were my actions, or how was the way that I was posing data, or the way that I wrote a report, or the way that I wrote a narrative in something, how was that affecting the feelings of the other people that were reading it or consuming it? And the more I got attached to that, and the more I connected to that, the faster and more diligent I saw people starting to get to a point where they felt pretty good. They felt pretty secure. I mean, my favorite story that I feel like I've told a billion times is that we were doing this pen test, and I'm in the middle of it, and I get a call from another client, and I'm like, oh man, is something going on, something bad? And they're like, yeah, well, my guys are all in the data center right now, and they're frantically patching stuff. They have all this stuff lit up and turned on, doing full packet analysis and all this other shit. And I'm like, what's going on? And they're like, well, one of them saw that one of your guys tweeted about finding a restaurant in our city. So they just figured you guys were here doing a pen test. And I was like, I am not there. And he's like, I know you're not there. And I was like, are you going to tell them? He's like, oh no. Nope. Best part, the absolute best part of it is within minutes after that call, I get a text message with a screenshot that says weak sauce, and is a picture of someone taking a picture of a screen and this like really bad jailed dropper that's like in the root directory of a C drive somewhere. And it was one of their IR people talking shit to me. And I just responded back, not me. And they're like, whatever, you just suck, try harder. And I just wrote back, okay. But the feeling is what made it good, right? Like they felt so strong that they were ready to take the person that they wanted to kick out of the room the first time that they saw the test, and now like talk shit to me to the point where I would give up. And I was like small tears coming down my eyes, proud. All right. Hard work is something that I think has been bred into me, as much as it doesn't look like it. But there's lots of talented people in our industry, like lots. The people are so damn smart. I feel like an idiot pretty much all the time. But the one thing I do know is that a lot of those people who are super smart end up coasting on being super smart, and then I just outwork them. I'm like, okay, well, you figured that out in 5 minutes. You're awesome. And they're like, yeah, I'm awesome. And then they go out for 6 hours being like, I'm awesome, and doing the chant, like walking around the city. And then like I get the job done because it take me like 4 hours to figure out what they figured out in 5 minutes. But then I had the extra 2 hours to get better. So I'm all for working hard. I think I've talked about that plenty. I think, bless you, I think we just have to be the change that we want to see, right? I mean, all of these things won't really matter unless one of us do it. And if one of us does it, then that is a measurable percentage. And if we get back to our measurement, the more people that do that, the more we can measure, the more we can show that it's succeeded and improved. I learned this one the hard way. 2 divorces because of InfoSec. It's not a good look. It's not a good time to tell people like, man, I've been working so hard that I forgot about everything else. Because all of us need some type of support system, whether it's friends, whether it's family, whether it's our dogs. It's totally my family and dogs, like they're the same thing. I mean, I'm gonna fly home today so I could go see them. But at the same time, I think that we gotta make sure that we have a good life balance of that, because the only way that I personally learned to get really recharged was having that thing outside my support system, where I came in and I went through the, the pen tester roller coaster of like, the first day where I'm like, haha, there's vulns everywhere. And then by like the 3rd day, I'm like, I totally suck. I should go into pre-sales. And then like, by Friday, I find something. I'm like, hell yeah, I got a show. What's up? And then, test is over. And, like that's pretty much been my life for the last 10 years or more. I guess 10 years at this company. And the only thing that really recharges me is the people that I love, or things around me that truly have that care that bounces back. So take care of them. Giving to people giving to anyone, giving to the community. I think it's a good move. A lot of people are really selfish, and I think that as I said when I opened, I think that the reason that this community became what it was, and that these events came what they did, is because everyone gave something. Whether it was coming here to give your time, or give your snarky criticism, whatever it is, give it. You'll get some back. Now granted, if you give a whole bunch of snark, I hope people give you shit back. Otherwise, you're a bully, and then I'm happy to publicly say something to you about it, and then we can bully each other and then become friends afterwards. But really, try and take that into mind. Public and private, you don't need to tell everybody when you're shitting on Twitter. You just don't. You don't need to do that. I mean, I get it. It's nice when everybody's like, cool, what size is it? What's the diameter? Like, what's color? Like, did you do analysis on it to understand your fiber intake? And that could lead to some great conversations. But like, do it to those people who really, really need it. And then for the other stuff, like, keep some things personal. Keep some of them private. They'll haunt you later. Trust me, I have some shit that really, really haunts me. And I wish someone would have told me this more emphatically when I was young, but it's okay. I think that, all of us have a way to resolve some of those things in the future. So just try and take it into account. This one kills me all the time, to remember who you are and not who they told you to be, right? Like, especially when I get these, like, he's your worst nightmare. It sounds like some really, really bad B-horror movie when somebody's talking about stuff where, like, he'll break into your building, or like, come fix my credit report, or whatever ridiculous shit people say to me, right? But I think a lot of times when people have some of those expectations, even though they may not seem negative or may not seem to become part of you at the time, once you hear them over and over again, like, sometimes we take those things into our personality. So I think that we just have to go back to that core remembering of who we really are in the world, who we want to be, versus necessarily who everyone tells us what we are, or what we, you're the no person from security. I'm like, I'm the yes person from security. You're just doing stupid shit. And they're like, oh, you just call everybody stupid. And you're like, damn it, you're right, it's me. Which leads me to, you don't have to be a bitch to be successful. You don't. This is one of my big gripes with most of a lot of what I see in the, like, Twitter sphere infosec thing. Not to say that there isn't good parts, because I'll tell you, I'm looking at it, right? Like, it's there. But I think a lot of people tend to get this, like, one-up, like, I'm going to climb the ladder by stepping on the necks of my enemies. Like, that, it's not Conan. Like, let's have a little bit of elegance in what we do. Like, we can all come up together. There's literally negative unemployment in our industry. Like, we don't need to smash anyone in our industry in order to get ahead. Even the people who are the absolute worst at it, like, we could give them a little bit of time and, like, help them come up with us, and maybe we'll just make the bottom suck less. Like, the top may not extend anymore. We may have the smartest people that exist ever in the history of InfoSec. They may be there, but that means that the averages will never change, right? Like, let's at least pull some people up from the bottom instead of just try and, like, smite them out of the industry. No feeding the trolls. We all know that. Yeah. I've had tons of problems with that in my life. I have learned the very, very, very hard way that doing that leads us to no love. Being a perpetual student, I think that's something that all of us can do better. I know I need to do it better. This one's hard. I think it's hard just because a lot of times people expect us to kind of measure and judge. But a lot of times we don't educate enough people after that. This control failed. Why did it fail? Because of technical blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay, now what? And you're like, I gotta go. Yeah, your AV didn't catch me. All right, well, what do I do? I don't know, you're fucked. Okay. I think that, some of these things can be solved. We just have to make a mental note to solve some of them. Please ask for help. It's the only way that I learned how to do any of the things that I learned today, because I didn't have a mechanism for, I couldn't go on the internet. It wasn't there. I could like dial into somebody else's bulletin board and they would just punt me. And then I had to learn how to get back on. And once I would get back on, they'd be like, LOL, you found how to get back on. Like, here's a book. Don't suck anymore. And I'd be like, okay. And I'd go read it. And then I would get everything wrong. And then I would ask more people for help. And they would tell me that I sucked. But then they would still help me, which I appreciated because, like, kept me grounded. But I think that asking for help, whether it's, to the mental health stuff, whether it's how do I do this, whether it's I'm starting a business, or I'm lauded as the best of wah, and I don't want to say this to anybody because, like, they're going to figure out I'm an imposter. Right? All of us have those situations, and especially when we're always looked up to as the tell us how this thing works security person, right? We can still ask for help. We can still ask for help around the community. We can ask for help for people who are just as dedicated as everybody in this room to go like, oh, hey, I have a secret, like TLDR, don't tell anybody, but like, I don't understand how TLS works. Like, what? And then the person will go, oh, you're an idiot, but here, check this out, right? Like a lot of times the people who are really good at it, if they're actually good, by the way, if you go and ask somebody who's supposed to be the expert of how do you do this, and they blow you off like you're just not cool enough to learn, it's because they suck at it. Fact. Absolute, all the way across the board fact. If you go to someone and you say, hey, I saw your talk, that looks super cool, how do I do this stuff? And they're like, bro, I ain't got no time for that. Like, they just suck, their talk sucked, don't worry about them anymore. It's like the 5-second investment that you can spend to get them out of your life and go to somebody who actually gives a shit. Get hobbies. I'm telling this to myself still right now. I need more hobbies, but I don't have enough. But try and get hobbies that aren't just pounding away at stuff. I mean, my couch has spent so many longing nights with me on it, working, not couching, not watching movies or doing anything, just me just working in a different part of my house and pretending like I had a hobby. I'm like, oh, look at this. I'm in this room that has all this other stuff in it, and I'm not looking at that and typing. Like, what are you doing? Chris, go outside. Yeah, I'm outside. Like I'm in the grass in the yard typing. None of you are probably as bad as that, so just a warning. Get sleep. I say that after I hadn't slept last night. It's a real thing. Like, you're humans, you really do need to sleep. I get that we're all like, Voltron, we don't need to sleep, I'm a robot, I hack all the things, But try and get some. Like, if you can't, like, you have to figure out how to quiet your mind enough, because at least for me, I know at night, the reason I don't sleep is I don't sleep because of the vulns. It's like the clowns, right? Like, I just don't sleep. I sit there and I'm just thinking of like, oh, what did I miss? Or, oh, that sounds cool. I didn't mess with that yet. I'll do that tomorrow. And then I sit there and I'm like, it's almost tomorrow. It's pretty close to tomorrow. And I like look at my phone, and then all of a sudden, like, I'm staring at my phone and I'm reading about stuff, and then I get like super juiced up and I'm like, I gotta get out of bed. That's it. And then my dogs yell at me and bark, and my wife stares at me and she's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm sorry, I blacked out. Having faith, it doesn't mean in anything other than faith, right? I believe in you. The potato believes in you. I believe in the potato. Like, if we all have that type of faith, we'll be able to climb the mountain of this shit'll never be secure. We'll be able to laugh at all of the vendors who are like, it keeps getting worse. The sky is falling every time. We lost 3 billion records. Who gives a shit? We lost them. They're gone. Right? Like, at some point, you have to be like, well, lost my wallet. What are you going to do? I'm not going to kill myself and like go, there's no more Chris. I guess I'm going to have to get a new identity. No, I just like pick my shit back up and I get it together and I work, right? So have the faith. Sometimes just a little bit of faith with the people around you will make them change the world. Even if you can't, on the days where you're exhausted and you cannot afford in your soul to change the world, that person next to you, all they might need is like, all right, I'm tapping out to you. You have to save the internet today. I'm gonna sleep. And they're like, what? Be like, you got this. Potato. And they don't know what you're talking about. But 20 minutes later, when you leave, they're like, I guess I gotta save the internet, sometimes it doesn't work, but the times that it does work, you'll be really stoked. And the times that it doesn't work, it'll just be normal. So I can leave you with this. I think that conferences like this, the amount of time and heart and care and passion and interest and curiosity that all of you put in is the reason that conferences like this work. It's the reason that our industry gets pushed forward in a time where people can't even pull it. I think that it's on all of us to keep that environment, to keep that level of passion, to keep that level of support of each other, that when people are tired at the desk, let them sleep. When they need a little bit of help, when they have a question, try and answer it, try and be excellent to each other. Don't just be the other person that's sitting there at the table who's a stranger. Know that most of the people who are sitting right next to you have the same scars underneath your clothes that you do. And that we're going through a lot of the same shit together. And that even the complete and utter stranger in all sides of this room have something to offer and something to teach. And no matter what you know, whether you're head cup manufacturer or the latest ninja of processor design, like, you have something to teach everyone. And if everyone could share one of those things that they know that the rest of the room didn't know, you will all come out of this as beasts. So please try and celebrate the differences that we have. Don't just point them out. And if you can't do that, go back to your cat. Thank you, guys.
Testing. Thank you, Chris.